you're running for office in Malawi, and you'd mentioned that it's purportedly a poor country. So what do you mean by that? Can you explain to us a little bit about Malawi? And because again, most people will not have heard of it, let alone know where to pick it out on a map. So can you tell us a little bit?
So Malawi is a little country in southeastern Africa. How I like to explain it, especially to people here in Michigan, is, you know, the pop star Madonna, right? Where she adopted her kids from. That's where I'm from.
Boom. They know immediately.
I guess that sort of tells them where it kind of is. And Western media and information that is out there pretty much states that we are one of the poorest countries in the world. Depending on what index you're using to make this statement, I would say that to a certain extent it is true. But coming from Malawi and having experienced a bit of both worlds in Malawi and knowing the wealth of resources that we have and just the human capital that is there, I believe that we are so much more than the label that has been placed on us. We are not doing too well economically. I mean, coming out of the pandemic as well as the Russia-Ukraine war, which has impacted us, things are not going so well. But I believe that there is so much more to the country than just being that country with, poor people.
Right. The like you said, the kind of Western stereotypes, the ideas, and even like you said, indices. Which indices do you use? Because I know that I've had interactions just even with my own nephew, and we were discussing one time, and he says, Africa is a really poor continent, and I said, that makes no sense considering most of the natural resources in the world are there. So what makes it poor? He said, well, they owe Europe money. And I said, why? And he was like, I don't know. And I was like, let's investigate, and it is, again, just one of those questions and one of those things that we assume, right? It's one of those.
And also, from what perspective are you making these statements? Poverty means totally something different out here than it does out there. Being wealthy, being rich means, and aside from the, obviously everybody wants to have money, but what do you consider as being rich or as being poor? For some people, it's family, a good life, and all of that. Others is a huge bank account. But depending on where you're standing and how you're looking at things, I say Malawi is not a poor country.
Now, in your experience, because you've lived, in many different areas in the world, right? Do you think that is kind of, is that our hang up here in the States? Is that kind of, or is that bigger?
I think it is. When I was going to school in Malawi, and to a certain extent also in England, the center of the world was not America. The center of the world was not America. Especially in Malawi, we would delve into so many topics about so many different countries. We would explore other countries before even, before the first time I got on a plane, I knew so much about other countries. Whereas what I discovered when I came here, if it's not America-centric, it's really not very important to teach. The country has to be at the center of everything, and then you move outwards. Whereas from where I come from my background, you look at the outside before, and then you look inwards, So I would say that I wish there was a broader way of, Americans learning what else is out there and just opening themselves up to other possible realities.
That's what we're trying to do. Yeah. I mean, that's honestly part of the, because that's been one of my, big pushes. And that, and I've been trying to do that in the classroom. And then I think, well, how can I, because this works. If we get enough people, we've seen it work. If we get enough people from different places sitting in a room and talking, eventually we figure stuff out.
Absolutely.
And,
yeah.
this virtual room that we have, can be extremely powerful. And it's just exposure, because you'd mentioned something in it.
It is. I'm remembering something. I don't know if it was in one of your classes. We read this article about the body rituals of this group of people.
Yes, that was me.
That were really weird kind of people. I think that is a very good lesson for people to always go back to. I remember that so well. I tell it to everybody that I meet. I'm like, if you want to understand me, let's look at this scenario. What do you think about these people? You know, what do you think should happen to them? And the kind of responses that you get is funny, because at the end of the day, when you tell them that you're talking about you, they're like, oh, okay. Perspective just does matter.
Well, yeah, and that's the body rituals of the Nacirema. If people who are listening want to check that out, we'll put that in the resources page of Humanities 101 so you can check it out. But it's all about perspective, because what we know is commonplace, when we look at it from a different perspective, right? Different normal, because there are so many different normals. And it is true that, you have to look outside of oneself, and you've got to realize that there's more than just your own nose. And you had mentioned, the effects of the Ukraine-Russian war, right? And so in this country, this is often discussed, right? In the States, it's often discussed that, again, very American-centric view. What do we have to gain? Why are we there? Why did we send this? Why did we send that? So could you explain a little bit, when you mentioned that there's an effect in Malawi, what effect would the war in Russia and Ukraine have on a country like Malawi in Africa?
The easiest way for me to put this into perspective for a lot of people is the price of bread. Russia and Ukraine and wheat, biggest suppliers, exporters of wheat in the world, the two of them, especially to my country. We get a lot of our wheat from that side. There's a war. The wheat is not coming out. Price of bread for the common person on the ground goes up. Now, not many people eat bread in Malawi. We're into your potatoes and things like that. But we feel this effect. And not just wheat and bread. When you think about oil, right now, my own sister, has been on a fuel queue for 2 days, waiting to fill up her car. Lucky enough, the petrol station is just 5 minutes away from her house. So she's able to have people bring her food, and, her husband will come, they'll swap, somebody else will come, they'll swap, but has been waiting to fill up her car for 2 days because we can't get fuel into the country. And I'm not saying that this is all because of just the Russia-Ukraine conflict, but it has contributed a lot. It has contributed a lot. It has disrupted the supply chain for my country. So, and that plus lack of political will for our current leaders as well to find other options, to find other ways, But that's just an example of how an event that's happening very far away from my country can affect the common person on the ground. And when I say my sister's waiting to fill up her car, majority of the people in the country don't really own cars. There's people that do own cars, but the person in the rural area does not own a car. They depend on public transportation to get them to hospitals and to schools and stuff like that. Buses are not running, and they can't get to a hospital, So things like that have a trickle-down effect. It might be very, very far from Malawi, but it does affect us.
And again, I'm not familiar with Malawi in particular, but I know when I was in Ghana, I was shocked when I noticed the gas price, and then I learned that it was per liter. And that, and then when you started to do the math in your head, you were like, wait, whoa, how much do you pay per gallon? And you make how much per month?
And it's amazing that for countries like Ghana, they've got oil there.
Right, exactly.
It shouldn't be that expensive.
Right. But, when we think, again, just in the States, when people talk about the price of gas, I know that's one of the things that I constantly will talk about, is that we don't know what the real price is in this country because it is subsidized highly.
Absolutely.
And when you go to the pump, even if you're paying $8 a gallon overseas, someone is paying that per liter in a country with a quarter of the GDP, an eighth, a tenth, a 1/80th, right? And the average, I know, again, when I was in Ghana, my host father, this was in 99, my host father made $100 a month salary and then paid $5 a liter for gas.
And $100 a month is quite a lot right now. You know, the poverty rate is what? It's below $2 a day, right? Now, with the majority of the people, especially those in the rural areas and those that are doing that are not in the corporate world, making not more than maybe $50 a month. Now, imagine how that affects their lives and their quality of life and the standard of life, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.